Hello, everyone. I am your host, Alejandro Colindres. Welcome to Series 2 of the podcast, The Road to Champagne, 13 tested principles to drive your career to success. This podcast series will benefit professionals that have room for growth in their career, especially young professionals. In Series 2, we are talking to professionals with brilliant careers in different stages of their journey to find out how the 13 principles have helped them. You can see the framework of the 13 principles in the website roadtochampagne.com. Welcome back to a new episode. Hey, if you have paid close attention to the selection of my more than 20 guests so far, you should realize that there is one thing in common. They are making fantastic progress on their road to success, despite the fact that they are in different stages. Some are just getting started, while others have already reached the executive level. I enjoy learning from guests from different fields, because they've had different journeys than mine. Unavoidably, though, I do share something in common with each of my guests because they are all people whose paths have crossed with mine at some point, most likely as colleagues, friends, or classmates. Today's guest is from a field not yet represented in this podcast, so I am extremely curious to learn more about her journey and her application of the 13 principles. Certainly, she will share some of her valuable insights with us, so let's do this. I am very excited to be joined by Carla Murillo-Gonzalez. Carla is an experienced architect, specializing in healthcare facility design with projects across the globe. Her scope spans from preliminary planning and design to construction administration. Currently, she is vice president at HKS, a design firm. Before that, she worked in several design firms including Smith Group, HDR, and URS. She studied architecture in the National University of Honduras, where she is from. She is currently working on her Master of Public Health at Baylor University. We met in Honduras and also lived in the same city, Alexandria, Virginia, for some time. When not busy designing, studying for her master's, taking care of her husband, 2 boys, and Bruno the dog, she enjoys gardening and getting together with family and friends. Carla, hello. Welcome to the Road to Champagne podcast. How are you?
Hey, Alejandro. How are you?
Very good.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Carla, so you've had an awesome career in the architecture world, which is very different than my world. So I wanted to bring somebody that is traveling on a different road to make it more interesting. So tell us a little bit about your career. Where did it start? How did it evolve? And where are you now?
Absolutely. I started about 21 years ago when I landed in a small firm in the DC metro area. And I was fresh out of college, and I had recently completed a 5.5-year architectural program in Honduras.
Yeah.
After a couple of years there, I moved to West Michigan because I got married, and then I needed to relocate to be with my husband, who was also working on his own degree in Michigan. So,
yeah. Hi, Julio.
Yeah. So then by chance, because I moved there, I landed in a very large firm that is national recognized and also had a healthcare studio as part of their services. And when I got hired, I didn't really know where I was going to work and what studio and what was going to be my focus. And I was actually hired to be in this healthcare studio where the focus was designing and developing architectural services for healthcare systems and healthcare projects. This was my first exposure to healthcare architecture. Actually, it wasn't really my plan. It just happened by chance. I want to say it was basically fate, I think.
Yeah, I was curious. I was going to ask you, how did you start that focus in healthcare? And now you answered it. And something similar happened to me, Carla. You know, when I joined A.T. Kearney, now Kearney Management Consulting Firm, you know, its focus is very strong in operations. And I wasn't necessarily looking for that specialization or focus, but just by the nature of the projects that I was involved in, I started getting, you know, more depth into that space. So I guess it kind of happened, you know, in a similar fashion. You know, that's what the company that you were working on was specializing in. And therefore you started acquiring those experiences in that world as well.
Exactly. And since then, I fell in love with that complexity because healthcare projects are very, very complex. As you can imagine, a hospital is like a ecosystem of multiple disciplines, multiple stakeholders, and everyone is kind of like your client. And you have to tend to all these needs from nurses, from facility managers, medical providers, and especially the patients.
Yeah.
And the systems to be able to make a building that complex to work is also extremely complex. And the life safety codes to keep people safe when there would be a fire is also extremely complex and different from other building types. So like an office building, you basically have people that can preserve their lives by themselves. You are assuming that people that go to office buildings are healthy. They can walk, they can move.
They can run down the
They
stairs
can
as
run
fast
down
as
the
possible.
stairs. They can follow instructions. They can see.
Yeah.
They can clearly know what to do in an event of fire or emergency. However, in a hospital is completely different, right? There's people that cannot really preserve their own life and have to depend on other people that are trained and staffed to be able to do what they need to do to keep them safe in that event. So designing and developing projects takes a lot. So I really fell in love with that complexity. It really was very challenging.
I bet. And you've done projects across the world, right? I imagine there's also different codes in different countries to make it even more fun.
Yeah, I have done projects across the world, but all the projects have been under the U.S. codes because they have been military hospitals.
Oh, okay.
So they are also under the jurisdiction of American codes.
Excellent. And Carla, how did you decide to study architecture back in the day?
Because I loved watching my sister when she was in architecture school, and she did so many cool stuff. And I was always watching her when she was doing studio works and projects and designs and all these models and drawings. And I just fell in love with what she was doing. And I decided to just do the same.
Great. Thank you for sharing that story, that journey. Carla, so of the 13 principles, which 3 do you believe have been fundamental in helping you get as far as you have on your road to success? Now a VP at a design firm focused in healthcare.
Yeah, I think that always being a work in progress is my favorite principle because you have to be constantly shaping your mindset. And in architecture, you constantly have to be learning, and you have to understand that by learning is the only way that you can move forward and be able to implement that learning into your practice.
Yeah.
Especially with architecture, codes change every 4 years. You have new technologies constantly. And in hospitals where we rely so much on medical equipment is constantly evolving and getting better and better. And the infrastructure that serve those pieces of medical equipment also need to be followed through very carefully, because if you don't have the infrastructure for that medical equipment to work properly, then the space is useless. The building is useless. So we have to be constantly learning. So I think that I am a work in progress now. It doesn't stop. And I don't think it will.
Yeah, the day you think you made it and you're a finished product, that's the day that you start declining as a professional. So you got to keep moving ahead, right? Because everything around you is moving forward. And if you just stay where you are, you're going to fall behind.
Exactly.
That's what that principle is all about.
Yeah.
What about a second principle?
Architecture is very challenging because it is a male dominant career, right? It has to do with construction. As a woman, also as a Latina, has always been a challenge. Mm-hmm. I want to say that staying true to my values and to who I am has been extremely important. And also want to say that grabbing the wheel has been one of the principles that I've applied constantly, because nobody will make things happen unless you make it happen for yourself. And you are the only one that knows exactly what you need and what you like and how would you like things to happen for yourself. Yeah. So being proactive about things and not waiting for others to do things for you, because in the end, everyone is looking for themselves. Everybody wants to protect themselves, or they want to be happy or find the right formula that will make it work for them. You have to kind of also be in that same mindset that you have to grab the wheel, and you also have to be proactive about your career path.
For sure. Carla, let me actually probe into something you said. So you said sticking to your values, principle number 7.
Yes.
Can you give us an example of how you've had to stick to your values in this context?
Like every workplace, there's always politics. We cannot avoid the social aspects of a workplace. So sometimes the social aspects of work may not be in line with your values. Mm-hmm. And that's when you decide and have to make a decision to stick to what you developed in your mind as a norm that you want to follow. So the social norms will be there and you may decide to do them or not, but you also have to develop your own norms to stick to and to guide you and to make the right decisions as they come.
Agree.
As a professional in a workplace, having those norms really clear in your head and your values really settled helps you navigate and make decisions and know how to respond when things get difficult and get hairy.
Yeah.
You always have to know how to navigate and make sure that you stay professional and you stay true to yourself as well and be an example. If we are leaders, we need to lead by example, and we need to make sure that we are enriching other people's lives, giving others something better to follow. Sticking to your values helps you lead by example.
Correct. And that might mean going against the current, right?
Absolutely. And that's hard, but it can be done.
Yes. Awesome. Carla, have you had any bumps in the road that you can attribute to not being as proficient as needed in one or more of the 13 principles? How have you increased your proficiency in it?
Absolutely. I've had many bumps in the road, but many. What principle do I think that I probably not being so proficient in that kind of collaborated or did not help with my situation? I would say knowing myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think that you know yourself, but knowing yourself is also knowing how other people perceive you.
Exactly.
Sometimes when you are naive or you are living in this bubble that you think that things are always good, when things are not good, you just don't understand what is happening. And that just doesn't help you navigate that issue the best way possible. Emotionally, keeping yourself leveled when the waters are rough. I think that was something that I've learned that I need to work on and I've been working on so that I can navigate better those social issues that I don't have really a lot of control, but I do have control on me, on how I react and how I see things. And now understanding that knowing myself is also knowing how other people perceive me. That is also empowering. So I am learning. I'm still learning.
Well, thank you for sharing that very honest answer. And, I would say, Carla, we all have bumps in our road, right? I mean, it happens to all of us in one shape or another. Now, I also want to add, Carla, that for, minorities, maybe immigrants like us, I think the road to Champaign is a little bit of an uphill road. It's not as flat, which means that we got to put more energy, intelligence, and strategic thinking in order to get to where we want to get. And that is why I think principle number 10 and 11 are key, which are increasing your power and influence and building your village or networking, building the right relationships. Because, as a minority in an organization here in the US, and this could be applicable to any other country, there's certain biases, right? Like if it's a male-dominated industry, the boardroom might be full of old white males. Just because that's historically how it has happened. And people try to bring in people that just look and feel similar to them. That's natural.
Yeah.
So to break that mold, that is where you have to become much more savvy. And, you and I and everybody else at navigating the politics so that you can get your ideas across more effectively, so that you can become a more effective leader that gets things done. Because like I've said before, results do not matter. It's results plus those extra connections that you can build, those extra relationships. Having a sponsor, somebody within your organization who is up there, somebody powerful, influential, who has an interest in you growing, that can help open doors for you. That is magic, right? That is something that we all have to strive and work to create because it doesn't just happen. There is no HR program that says, hey, Carla, Alejandro, you've been assigned to this sponsor. You have to create those relationships. But when we do, I think some of those roadblocks start to minimize. You're being pulled up within the organization instead of you trying to push yourself upwards in the hierarchy. Having the right relationships inside your organization and even external can help all of us that are trying to grow at a faster rate, whether you're a minority or not, achieve that. So I would say, Carla, that for the listeners out there, yes, principle number 6, know yourself is key. But in that situation, also 10 and 11, I think, play a huge role.
Absolutely, Alejandro. You've hit the nail on the head. And definitely networking and having people that know you and for who you really are and your capabilities really helps and opens up the road for you to be exposed to projects that will enrich you and that will make you grow. these people also will help support you and give you the right resources so that you can do your work successfully as well. Especially in
Yeah.
my field, in architecture, when you're an architect, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have a life safety component that you are responsible for, needs from your client that you are responsible for, systems and infrastructure that you are responsible for. And all those are very extremely complex. And if you don't have the right resources to support you and promote you and help you lead and be successful, that's also extremely critical. And that's also part of the networking and having the right people and having people know you for your capabilities and your strength and your weaknesses too.
Yeah.
Because when they know your weaknesses, they can give you the support you need to fill out those weaknesses. And we have to help each other by knowing each other better and knowing how to leverage each other as well. So I think that definitely principle number 10 and 11 is extremely critical.
Yes, our success is a team sport. It's not just about you and what you deliver. You could be an awesome, whatever, cranking out the most beautiful reports, but it takes more than just that. You got to have that network of people that can give you the right guidance, think of you when the right opportunities come up, give you the right coaching. The ideal would be having a sponsor that is somebody that can help pull you up. Right. That is probably one of the toughest relationships to build and have. If you do, consider yourself lucky, but it's something that we should all aspire on having.
And it's constantly moving. Networks constantly change. So we always have to be learning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And not only that, Carla, if your aspirations change, right, because you say, hey, I want more of XYZ, I cannot get it here, I need to go somewhere else. Then all of a sudden you have a gap in your network. Like, oh my gosh, how do I close those gaps so that I can really get to where I want to get? Because your current network is no longer enough.
Yes.
So I like what you just said. Yes, it is an evolving network landscape.
Yes. And I've had that experience where you move from one place to another, where you've had your network, where you've had built your village, and now you need to rebuild that village. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yes. Yeah, building it and maintaining it is hard work. That is why not a lot of people are good at it. That is why it's one of the principles where I have to put in more effort, just because, I'm an introvert. I prefer to read a book than to be calling people, right? And just checking on how they're doing, just by the nature of what I'd rather do, right? I mean, one energizes me. The other one, I guess, takes out some energy away. But we need to do it. You need to be strategic, even if it doesn't come natural.
And it doesn't come natural to me too. So I can relate what you just said. I can relate totally.
Carla, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about some random principles. I'm going to pick number 9. Define your brand. What would you say your current professional brand is? And have you had to reinvent or rebrand yourself?
Oh, yeah. So my current professional brand is Architecture for Health. However, we can use architecture to promote and preserve health in human beings. That is where I find my passion. So whether it's doing hospital buildings where we provide services for health care, or whether it is supporting a community with architecture, with design, with neighborhood connectivity, with providing parks and places and venues that promote health for a community. That is also my passion. And right now I'm actually navigating that bigger picture, kind of flying a little bit higher than just being hyper-focused on a building and the nuts and bolts of inside of building, to a little bit higher to seeing the broader approach of health into a community. And that's part of my rebranding that I'm working now with my master's in public health.
Tell us about that, because I'm very curious. Tell us, how do you see that master's help evolve your brand, and what are you trying to use it for or learn, etc.?
I am pursuing a new master's degree in public health, which has to do a lot with making sure that our aim as public health practitioners is to improve the quality of life of people. You're not really focused on making spaces for health caring, but more so providing the right environment for a community so that it can promote health, whether it can be bike paths, it can be a safer road, a safer environment in a neighborhood so people are encouraged to go walking and improve their health. Having that built environment that promotes health is very important to communities to flourish, to grow, and to be better. And the healthier we are, the more we can contribute to the community, the better economy we can build as a country, as a neighborhood, as a city.
Yeah.
So I am in the process of defining all this, Alejandro. I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But as I'm learning more and more, I'm becoming more and more passionate about it. And I just want to keep learning more.
Okay. You're going to apply this new knowledge into your design.
Correct.
Awesome.
And like I said, my brand is Architecture for Health. So whether it is in a building, designing and leading teams to produce documents for construction, that the end result will be a healthcare facility, or it could be architecture for health in a community and making sure that we provide the right built environment that promotes health in a bigger scale.
Excellent. And I don't know if you realized it, but you were applying principle number 8, build expertise, because now you're going to be able to use that new knowledge and expertise to stand out from your healthcare focused architectures that are peers, right? Because they might not have that knowledge and that degree that you will have.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Carla, on principle number 4, say yes. What have you said yes to that has caused positive, life-changing events to unravel?
Oh my gosh, this Masters of Public Health is a big yes. After 20 years of working in the architectural industry and being so immersed in projects, saying yes to a master's degree took a lot of courage for me to do it.
Yeah.
It took me like 4 months to even say yes. When I got the acceptance letter from Baylor, I had to give it a lot of thought. And in the end, when I said yes, I knew I had made the right decision.
Yes, it sounds very promising and exciting. So I'm sure it's going to be an awesome move. Congratulations ahead of time.
Yes.
So Carla, let me pass on the mic to you and I'll let you ask me a question.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm excited to ask questions.
Uh-oh.
Alejandro, what are your bumps and how have you used your principles to overcome those bumps?
Okay, yes. So I admit it, I've had bumps too, right? Everybody has them. So I think I've had bumps that come out of my control. By bumps, I mean events that slow my growth. Whether it's a bump or a twist, you did not want that to happen. Some that I could have controlled better, I would say, Carla, I have accepted a parallel move when I changed companies when I could have negotiated better and gone for the promotion. It was like, okay, I'll prove that I can get that promotion soon and I'll make it happen. And I did. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, I lost 1 year in that particular decision. Exactly. Where I could have just negotiated better and come in at the level that I really wanted. Yeah. And I've done that a couple of times and I'm not doing it again. But I did it for several reasons. But I think those were bumps that I could have controlled better. Now, what did I do to, catch up and eventually get that promotion? Obviously, I had to establish my reputation, make sure that I was delivering top-notch results to get, the trust and validation of those people around me to say, okay, yes, of course, let's promote Alejandro and give him, bigger scope, etc. But I set myself up to wait, about a year or so to make that happen. If I were to advise other people out there, I would say, hey, there's nothing wrong with lateral moves. They sometimes make sense depending on what that lateral move will bring, right? Maybe new exposure to topics that you're trying to learn, the opportunity to rebrand yourself, relocating to the city that you really want, etc. But first, try to make it a growth step. Don't just by default go lateral. And just to give you another example, I was working at Cadbury and Kraft bought Cadbury. The conversations that I was having about my growth paths were tossed out the window because all of a sudden it was new leadership. Project had ended immediately. And therefore, I was kind of like starting from scratch. I stuck around after the acquisition for about a year. I was testing to see if maybe something interesting would happen, but it really didn't. And I said, okay, it's time to move on. And that's when I decided to go back to consulting. And I joined McKinsey in Sao Paulo, Brazil. There's times in our career when there are things that come that we don't expect that are going to slow us down or cause us to change routes. And there are things that we do. If we're going to be using the car analogy, maybe we shifted the gearbox too slow or too fast and, it caused us to lose some momentum. So we have to learn from all of those experiences to make sure that we can, one, be adaptable and land on our feet quickly. And two, not make those mistakes that not only we did, but that we can see other people doing, right? One of the things about Principle 13, learn from all leaders, right? I want people to learn from what other people do. Don't just learn from your mistakes, because any fool can do that. It's about learning from your peers, your friends, your colleagues, what worked for them, what didn't. That's my advice.
No, that's great. Actually, that's really good. moving laterally sometimes has to do with not feeling confident enough to do that higher position that you could be doing. And I think that we all have that capability to be doing that step up.
Yeah.
I've done the same. It has to do with not having the courage or not thinking that I do have that. I have all the capability to be good and be competitive.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Carla. I would also say it's negotiation strategy, right? Because if I would have had other strong options that were equally attractive, right? Because I did have options, but they were maybe not as attractive. If I would have had more attractive options, then I would have come to the table with a different position, right? I would have said, hey, this is it or I'm out, right? Take it or leave it. But that wasn't necessarily the case. So I was like, okay, do I take this? Or, the second alternative is maybe not as nice for other reasons. Yeah. So yeah, it's a combination, like you said, of self-confidence, but also a negotiation strategy that gives you enough alternatives that you could say, you know what, I'll pass. I have something else that's interesting waiting for me.
Very good. Yeah.
Carla, so each of our audience members is on their journey to success, trying to get through their champagne. What advice could you offer professionals so that they can be more efficient as they drive to success?
Well, I think that champagne, you can start drinking it while you're on the road. So
not literally.
Not literally.
Don't drink and drive, people.
Don't drink and drive. No, not literally, but you can always enjoy and think that you are in the best of your best while you're at the road. You always perform, and you can be a better professional when you are really enjoying it and you're not just chasing the dream. I think the dream needs to happen every day, and it needs to happen while you are walking in that road. Enjoy it, and you can sip that champagne as you go through it. And never give up.
Yes.
My road has been very difficult. It has challenged me to know how to perform not only as a professional, but as a human being. What is the right thing to do in this moment? And sticking to my values really has helped me navigate and do the right things and act and behave and also be a good example and a good leader to people that are around me. People are always watching you, Alejandro, and they observe how you behave, how you act, what you do in these circumstances. What are you doing in this really, really hard moment? Or how do you react when a client tells you something in not the best tone? How do you resolve multi-million-dollar problems? And by sticking to your values and knowing them well, I would even say write them, speak them, and reread them. I constantly have to reread my mission statement in life, my values, because they need to be up there really close to you so you can apply them well when the problems come.
Yes.
So just don't give up. Keep going. Enjoy the champagne in your road. Be always positive. People need your positivity. People need to see you shine and be able to say, hey, I want to be like that, and I want to be that kind of professional. And I know that things are not easy for that person. I've seen how that person behaves, and I want to be that kind of person so you can motivate and make people grow.
Carla Murillo-Gonzalez, thank you for joining me today, especially because you're on vacation. And thank you for sharing how these principles are working in your journey.
All right.
It was really fun learning more about your road to success. I knew some of it, but not as much as I do now, Carla, so I appreciate it. And everybody, you can contact Carla via LinkedIn. And remember, you can and must take action to start unlocking the power of the 13 principles in your life. Let's meet again in the next episode. I have another awesome guest for you. Thanks for joining me, and cheers to a more efficient journey on your road to champagne. Hey, if you missed Series 1, I encourage you to listen to it. It explains the foundational principles we are discussing in Series 2. Like this episode? Please share it with your friends, colleagues, and classmates, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to visit roadtochampagne.com and join our mailing list, and to follow Road to Champagne on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram,